Underrated is a great word to define the city of Poznan. Not as well renowned as Warsaw or Krakow, but just as important to Poland as those two. A while ago, I found myself heading to Poznan, something that even nowadays seems strange to say. The idea of going to Poland's fifth largest city was interesting to say the least, especially since I had never been to Poland. Why did I choose to go? Is a question that still pops up every now and then. However, that uncertainty is promptly raised by the greatest memories I have ever had, and one of the places I hold dearest to my heart. Poznań is a city that has something for everyone, great people, and a true Polish character. Let me share with you some knowledge of Poznań and my favorite places to visit in this incredible city. Poznan's history is long and convoluted. Few cities in the world have dealt with as much as Poznan has. Its beginnings are presumably traced back to the Stone Age. However, it is most well known for its role under the Piast dynasty. The Piasts were the first rulers of what it is considered the initial Polish state. They ruled the Kingdom of Poland between the 10th century and the 14th century. The Piasts decided to make Poznan their capital, until it was destroyed by Bretislaus I, Duke of Bohemia in 1038. In spite of the decline of the region's political importance, Poznan remained an important economic center. In the following years, Poznan continued to grow and expand away from the cathedral island. However, it also suffered a number of fires between 1386 and 1590 that halted a further growth of the city. After the partitions of Poland, Poznan fell under Prussian rule. Although at first the Polish people experienced some freedoms, in later years a campaign of Germanization was followed by the Prussian occupiers. The city was even renamed Posen and stayed under Prussian-German control for 125 years. Following Germany's defeat in World War I, a new state of Poland was reborn that included Poznan. Yet, we all know that Germany and the Soviet Union invaded Poland to erase the country from the world maps once again. That was the start of World War II, which signified a brutal time for Poznan. During the German occupation, the city and its inhabitants suffered all kinds of atrocities. Many people were murdered, executed, tortured, or detained in inhumane conditions, particularly at the notorious Fort 7 concentration camp. Even during its liberation, Poznan had to see itself as the battleground between its two oppressors. The 1945 Battle for Poznan resulted in the destruction of 55% of the entire city, including 90% of the old town. After World War II, it fell on the Soviet sphere of influence as Poland became a communist republic. This communist Poland was essentially a puppet state to the Soviet Union, which gave way to more decades of oppression for the Polish people. Eventually, the fall of communism allowed the foundation of a democratic government, a period known as the Third Polish Republic. Since then, Poznan and the country have flourished into a pivotal area of Europe. The history of this city is a statement to the resilience and courage every single Polish person always demonstrates. There is no better place to start your Poznan trip than the Old Market Square. Locally known as Stary Rynek, it is where the historic Poznan Old Town Hall stands, and it is the third largest market square in Poland. The square's main sites are the Old Town Hall, the merchants' houses, and the famous Poznan fighting goats. The Old Town Hall is the crown jewel of the Old Market Square. Its beautiful architecture is something you have to admire. This building was first built in 1253, and now it houses the Museum of the History of Poznan, where you can learn everything about this beautiful city. Just next to the Old Town Hall, we can find the Domki Budnicze, a group of merchants' houses that date back to the 16th century. These 3 or 4-story narrow tenement houses are painted in bright colors and are one of the city's most iconic attractions. These houses, along with the Old Town Hall, are relics of the early architecture of the city and an insight of how Polish people used to live in the past. The houses were once stalls that sold herring, salt, candles and torches, as well as some everyday items. However, the most well-known thing about the square are its famous goats. As the tale goes, after a great fire, the town hall tower had to be reconstructed. To commemorate this feat, a young cook, Pietrek, was charged with the celebration's main dish, a venison leg. Yet, Pietrek got distracted and left his station, only to return to a completely burnt leg. Attempting to avoid being reprimanded for ruining the celebration, he stole 2 goats to serve as the main dish. But as luck would have it, the goats escaped into the town hall building. There, to the amazement of the guests, the 2 goats started fighting and headbutting. Everyone in attendance, including the mayor, found this scene hilarious. Due to how much fun the townspeople had with the goats, Pietrek was pardoned and the goats returned to their owner. Following the celebration, the mayor ordered the watchmaker to add a pair of goats to the clock that would work as a type of cuckoo bird. Nowadays, the goats still make an appearance every day at noon, along with a trumpeter that plays a bugle call. Many people gather at the market square at noon to bear witness of that eventful day in Poznan history. There are two absolutely beautiful castles in the city center, the Royal Castle and the Imperial Castle. Only a 5-minute walk away from the old market square, we can find the Royal Castle. Construction of this castle probably started in 1249 under the rule of Przemysl I. When its construction was finished in 1337, it was the largest castle in the Kingdom of Poland. Since 1536, it has been rebuilt and renovated too many times to count, but talented people have managed to preserve its beauty. The Imperial Castle is located a 20-minute walk away from the old market square. This castle is relatively new, as it was built under German rule in 1910 for Wilhelm II, the last emperor of Germany. In contrast to a royal palace, which is built in a mix of Gothic and Romanesque styles, this castle has a neo-Romanesque style. Yet both castles are equally beautiful and definitely worth a visit. Today, the Royal Castle houses the Museum of Applied Arts, whose tickets cost 20 zloty or $5.32, while the entry fee to visit the Imperial Castle is 7 zloty or 15 zloty with an audio guide, which are equal to $1.87 and $4 respectively. Now, let's talk about museums. The Old Town is full of them. From the National Museum in Poznan to the Poznan Potato Museum, Poznan is a city full of knowledge. Many people don't like museums as they deem them too boring. However, Poznan defies that misconception by having quite unorthodox museums. The Chocolate Museum, the Poznan Potato Museum, and the Croissant Museum are not what you have in mind when you think of a museum. Yet, they are true gems of the city. The Chocolate Museum and the Potato Museum can accommodate English-speaking individuals, but I recommend checking in with the museums beforehand. You can contact each museum through their websites, which I have linked down below. Tickets for the Chocolate Museum cost 65 zloty or $17.28, and tickets for the Potato Museum cost 21 zloty or $7.71. The Croissant Museum has tours exclusively in English on Saturdays and Sundays at 2 p.m. Sometimes they make more tours available, but you have to check the website linked on the description box. Tickets for the Croissant Museum cost 39 zloty or $10.37. Also remember that there are more Orthodox museums that you can visit in Poznan. The best ones, in my opinion, are the National Museum in Poznan, the Military Museum of Wielkopolska, the Museum of History of Poznan, and the mock-ups of Old Poznan. The Old Town is also where you'll find the best places to grab a bite and a drink. At the Old Market Square, there are several good quality restaurants that serve Polish and non-Polish food. For example, Whiskey in the Jar is a solid spot to get a burger or a steak, and Bieckie Jadło is a good option for Polish food. Although I only mentioned two restaurants, there are other really tasty restaurants in the Old Market Square. I recommend you walk around and see what appeals to you the most, and also guide yourself with online reviews. Other great spots in the Old Town are Veranda Cafe for breakfast, Góra Warszew for some tasty kebabs, and Pirogarnia Stare Młyn for traditional Polish pierogies. In terms of grabbing a drink, I believe the best place is Wrocławska Street. This street starts at the Old Market Square and is filled with several bars and nightclubs. Since Poznan is full of university students, you'll see crowds of young people around the street. However, people of all ages can enjoy a night out at Wrocławska Street. Also, a must-visit place that is unique to Poland's drinking scene is Chupito Shot Bar. I think there is nothing similar to Chupito anywhere else in the world. Not because it's a revolutionized idea or business, but because their shots are one in a kind. If you like to drink, you will love Chupito. Even though I have talked extensively about the Old Town, there is another area that might have an even greater historical significance. Poznan originated from an island located just next to the Old Town, Ostrów Tumski, or Cathedral Island. It's the oldest part of the city where we can find the Poznan Cathedral and its ecclesiastical buildings. In the 10th century, the island was the site for the palaces of the Piast dynasty, in turn making Poznan the seat of power for the early Polish state. The Archcathedral Basilica of St. Peter and St. Paul in Poznan is one of the oldest churches in Poland and the first cathedral in the country. It was originally built in the second half of the 10th century, around the time Mieszko I was baptized, an event that was key for the Christianization of Poland and consolidation of the Polish state. Just like most of Poznan's historic sites, it has been destroyed and rebuilt several times. Nowadays, it has a Gothic style and is the burial place of the first rulers of Poland, Mieszko I and many others. Entry to the cathedral is free for anyone seeking to pray or attend Mass. Tourists that want to visit the underground of the cathedral, where the crypts are located, need to book tickets. Tickets cost 7 zloty or $1.87 and can be bought at a tourist service point in the cathedral or in the sacristy. There are other attractions on the island, like the Archdiocese Museum that holds the oldest Polish relic, the Sword of St. Peter, and the Genius Loci Archaeological Reserve that features the remnants of defensive walls from the time of Mieszko I. Plus, not even 5 minutes away, we can find the Środka neighborhood that dates back to the medieval times. Środka is known for the Środka Tale mural, which is one of my favorite things about Poznan, and the Porta Postania, which is essentially an interactive museum dedicated to the history of the cathedral island. The Porta Postania is probably the best museum in Poznan, even though it is more of a heritage center than a museum. Tickets for the Porta Postania cost 28 zloty or $7.52. After visiting all the great attractions the city has to offer, I think you will need a very well-deserved break. Well, I have the perfect spots for you, a park and a lake. Let's start with Park Cittadella, located north of the Old Town. It comprises the lands where Fort Vignale once stood, a 19th century fortified area. The fort was part of a system of defensive fortifications around Poznan that were constructed by the Prussians. After World War II, Fort Vignale was converted into the Citadel Park we see today. At the park, you can visit the remains of Fort Vignale, the Poznan Army Museum, the Armament Museum, and some military cemeteries. However, the park is the best place to spend your afternoons or have a relaxing walk. Since it is the largest park in Poznan, there is a lot to explore and many spots that will make you want to stay there forever. Yet, the Citadel Park is not the only breathtaking spot in Poznan. There is a lake that is a great place to distress or just hang out. Lake Malta is located to the east of the city, about 15 minutes away from the old market square. This artificial lake was formed in 1952 when the Sabina River was dammed. To say that walks around the lake are amazing would be an understatement. You definitely have to do so, if you have some time to kill or you just want to go on a very relaxing walk. However, Lake Malta is also known for the recreational activities that are mere steps away from the lake. In the Lake Malta area, you can find an artificial ski slope, an artificial ice rink, a regatta course, a zoo, a beach, and even a spa. The ice rink is only open during the winter months, from October to April. An hour at the ski rink costs 14 to 22 zloty, or $3.78 to $5.95, in addition to the 16 zloty or $4.33 for renting the skates. In contrast, the ski slope remains open all year round and is one of the highlights of the lake. In the winter, the slope is full of artificial snow, but in the summer there is a roller coaster, a merry-go-round, a toboggan, and a mini golf course for you to enjoy. Tickets for the ski slope in the winter go from 49 zloty or $13.25 for an hour to 199 zloty or $53.79 for the whole day. In the summer, every ride starts at 15 zloty or $4.05, while a mini golf ticket costs 25 zloty or $6.76. The lake is also known for being one of the oldest man-made rowing venues in Europe, so you will see many people rowing or canoeing there. There are even stands so that you can enjoy any rowing competitions that might be happening when you are there. Not many lakes allow you to go for a swim and then visit a zoo in a matter of minutes, but you can do so at Lake Malta. The new Zoo of Poznan, as locals know it, is an incredible zoo with lots of space for its animals located to the east of the lake. Together with the old Zoo of Poznan, which was founded in 1874, It forms the Zoological Garden in Poznan. Both zoos are very recommended and a great fun activity. While the old zoo is free to enter, tickets for the new zoo cost either 15 zloty or 20 zloty, which converts to $4 or $5.41 depending on the day you visit. I might be biased when talking about Poznan, but there is something you cannot deny. This place is unique. In my opinion, it is the quintessential representation of Poland, even more than Warsaw and Krakow. From its Cathedral Island to the Lake Malta to Wrocławska Street, you can see how diverse the city is. Some parts are deeply connected to the true Polish values, while other parts hint to a constant drive to evolve into a world-leading nation. Yet, never forgetting that there are always times to let loose and enjoy life. Hopefully, this video has been a good guide to Poznan. Let me know of any other great recommendations in the comments or drop any questions you might have. Consider subscribing and leaving a like. God bless you and have a great day.